Good evening, everyone, again. And what we're going to be doing today, we're just going to be talking about UI UX, right? The world of UI UX design, which everyone seems to think is let me say something. Whenever you say UI UX, everyone thinks, oh no, this is like a big deal. This is this and that. Of course, don't get me wrong, it is a big deal. It is a very good skill to acquire, right? But it's not difficult. It's just like every other, profession. It is very, very useful because I mean, nowadays, almost every brand wants to have, a website. Every brand wants to have apps. Every brand wants to have like something to do. Even if it's not just website or app, every brand wants to have like a device. Starting from like your iWatch, to different things. There's interface in everything that people do nowadays. If you want to buy a gadget that doesn't have an interface, right, you would not buy that. You rather opt for a brand that has like an interface, and that's where UI UX come into play. And this is not just limited to designers alone, right? Project managers, business analysts, pretty much every profession needs to know a little bit of design, no matter how small it is. My name is Oluwatosin Ayilara, and of course, I'm a professional with over 8 years of experience in the design industry, right? I've worked in IT, education, marketing, e-commerce, gaming industry, multimedia industry. I've worked as a brand manager, worked as a creative director. Going through all this, it has just given me the knowledge, right, and ability to have all this knowledge, and at the same time, just distill everything down and focus and say, you know what, guys, I've been in the movie industry. I've been in, the business aspect of it, right now, like where my strength lies on. This first week, we're going to be talking about introduction into UI UX and the use of AI. And that's what we're going to be doing pretty much today. Week 2, we're going to be talking about, or we're actually going to be doing practical fully, building your portfolio using either Figma, XD, getting to know more of these softwares. And week 3, we believe you should have completed your portfolio. So if you're on the path of, building your career as a UI UX designer, I believe this 3 weeks, you'll be able to at least know the basic things around, right? And as a UI UX designer, it's quite wide. You can't know everything. You have to know a bit of this, a bit of that, a bit of, that at the same time. Yes, so what is UI UX? Let's get into business now. What is UI UX? What do you understand by that, right? So I'll go on. Aside having, definition of what UI UX is and generally, can anyone just tell me what the term means? User experience is as simple as it sounds. It's just the experience you get from something, right? And this brings us to UI UX, right? UI UX is not just about websites and apps or anything you see out there. It goes beyond that. It's the experience you get from using a product. In general, right? It's what the user you go through when you interact with a brand, their service, their products, and so on and so forth. Okay, so looking at examples of, user interface. Now, moving to user interface. User interface is more of the, the way it look, the look and feel of the product that you're interacting with. For example, we all own mobile devices. We have, laptop, we have gadgets that we use around. The way it looks, somebody actually sat down to design that thing. And they didn't just go into their design software to start designing, put this button here, put that button here, and so on and so forth, right? They actually sat down, discussed about it, and said, okay, you know what? If we're going to design this interface, what do we want people to see first? What's the hierarchy of, the font you're using, the hierarchy of information that you want people to see? All these thoughts actually go into, designing before the designer even sit down to actually work on things like that. It moves beyond even your mobile device, your website, your gadgets, Apple Watch, interface, even our TV, mobile TV, Android TVs that everyone uses nowadays is even beyond that. Let me ask a question. How many of us love cars? Why do you like Benz?
I think I like the design. I like that it's strong and it's kind of classy.
Okay. From that, I know the kind of person you are. No, no suffer gang. Okay. Well, me too. I'm a Mercedes-Benz person. I mean, not this to all other brands. All other brands are good, but I mean, for a brand to have been around for more than 100 years, right? They must be doing something well, right? Other brands are also doing something good, but me in particular, I like Benz because of the interior, right? And that is why you can see an example right here, right? There's just this feeling you get when you enter a Mercedes-Benz. So now why I'm giving this example is because user interface goes beyond just design. I keep saying this. It goes just beyond, websites, apps, and all of that. It's your everyday life. For you to be a good UI UX designer, it must be a part of you, right? Everything you see, your space, your surrounding. Again, if you guys have used headphones before, for some of us that like to use headphones while working, you would notice that the texture that they use in headphone is different, right? We have the foam, and nowadays some people even use materials, right? Gone are those days when they started with like all these, it was just foam and cloth, right? So, then something happened, when you sweat, they had like very difficulty in those things. The material would peel and how they evolved to doing, just a surface that is like matte finish, right? When you put it on it doesn't hold sweat in. So technology keeps evolving every now and then. So, and this is all user interface. How is your audience or how are your users, able to use your product very well? How are they able to interface with it? So for example, if you sit inside a Mercedes-Benz that has this type of interior that you can see on the screen, that has this type of interior, you're going to just be like, wow, you feel it, you touch it, luxury, all that. For example, they're prioritizing user over profit, right? Mercedes-Benz vehicles are not cheap, but people still buy them. Why? Because of the experience that you get from that, the satisfaction you get from the design that they've done, the performance of the car and everything. Now, moving to another example, gas cookers. There are now smart gas cookers out there right now, right? If you don't put your what's it called, your pot on it, it won't come on or it won't get hot because it is smart. It knows that you cannot, even if you turn it on mistakenly and there's no pot on it, it's not going to come on, right? The gas cooker that have like timers, it can time your food for you. You can operate it from wherever you have, remote control, a lot of devices like that. We can keep on going with designs, with examples and stuff without finishing today. So this is just showing you the evolvement and where you can actually see UI UX, design in play. So how many of us remember this good old cassette stereo that we all used then? Anyone? Anyone ever used this?
God VHS, we used it.
This device had so many functions. I can't even remember all the functions, right? It has timer, right? You can record, you can do a lot of things. It has alarm in it, right? And this is just one device that can do the job of like 5 other devices. Now, moving into the UI UX world, you're developing a website, you're developing app and so on. You want to make sure that people keep on using your app. People keep on using everything that you have in that app. And that's why bank apps, I'm sure we are all familiar with bank apps, right? Before, I think like about 10 years ago, right? Bank apps used to just be you just sending money to somebody and that's all, right? You just send money to people and that's all. Nowadays, there are so many functions inside bank app that, you keep on opening your bank app every day. It's no longer a thing that you just open whenever you send money to people. You can always use it for budgeting. You can budget, your spending. There are bank apps right now that you can set alarm if you're passing like your threshold or your budget for the month, right? It tells you that, okay, you know what, you're spending more than this. You get like real alarm, coming on you a lot and telling you, okay, you know what, limit your spending. And this is like usability generally. Your product has to be able to, people have to be able to use your product over and over and stay in that product. Looking at this example, can somebody tell me what is wrong with this first one, this signage, this one that says no trash? Can someone tell me what is wrong with it?
It's not straight and the edges are not plain.
Okay, so let me be more specific. What is wrong with the content in it?
So I was going to talk about the content now. So it says garbage only, no trash.
Mhm.
Trash is garbage.
Yes.
So it's not straight, it's confusing. So for me, if I see this thing, first of all, I'll be like, what do you mean?
Mhm. Exactly.
So it's creating curiosity in my mind already. Garbage only, no trash. Man, I don't understand what you mean. So should I um put garbage here
Or
and
not.
or not? So I mean, it's going to create a curiosity in my mind. You get what I'm saying? Mhm.
Yes. You're 100%. Now, someone said, what's the difference between trash and garbage? Exactly. I'm also asking myself the question. That is why rules have been put in place. If you are doing a design, you're coming up with, a website, make sure your information is clear. As they will say, or as I will tell people, everyone knows ABC, right? If you do a design and you bring a design to me to review, and it is not as clear as ABC, you've not done a good job, right? And that is why you have to spend time first of all, and that is where the use of like wireframes and all these things come out. Before you even go into design, do your wireframe. Do people understand your wireframe? Okay, this is where my image should be. This is the hierarchy. Now, this information is confusing. Garbage only, no trash. What do you mean, right? So, well, when we move further in our practical session, and in this session, right, we'll be able to understand the different roles. This is obviously a problem with the maybe UX writer or UI writer, right? This is a content issue. The one on the right hand side that says room 101, 113 is also has the same issue, and that is more of a design issue. The first one is more of content, content fault, right? The next one
Yes.
is a design aspect, yes. So
What
this
should I have done better?
all right. This first one, obviously, they should have just kept it simple, as I said. Remove the garbage only, of course, and just leave no trash.
What about using pictures to represent what you mean by garbage? For example, here now, you see where they'll tell you recycle, they'll put bottle, recycle bottles. There's a picture of this is bottles. Then there's a picture of maybe throwing dirt and everything. Why don't they just use pictures to represent these things?
Yes. So I will tell you why. Now, in my experience as being a designer generally, right? The
Mm.
the decision doesn't lie on you alone. Now, if you
Oh,
note out there now, people use just icons and then just put like a slash on it, saying everyone understand what that means nowadays. It means
mm.
oh, don't do this, right?
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yes.
Now, if you're working in a company that they specifically called it out, we want you to write this. Do you understand? That is what they obviously want. So
Oh, okay.
it now boils down on you to say, okay, you know what? This information looks too. Make it simple, right? Can we make it simple? Two solutions, as you said. The designer could have as well just, made it minimalistic. Just use an icon, design it in such a way that everyone understands that, okay, no trash, dustbin, and then put a slash on it or whatever design you want to do. And that's that, right? Or if you want to use Word, if that's what the company wants, because as a designer, you're not working alone, you're working with a group of people, except it's just a sole, projects that you're doing, then of course you can take all actions by yourself. So just remove garbage only, no trash. As I said, make it as simple as possible. Everyone understands that. So the next one says room 101. Obviously, the arrow, right? Are you telling me that room 101 to 113 is left or right? So in that case, a clear color representation. Moving to more complex designs, right? The previous example that I showed, that is obviously a simple, but yet they went wrong with it. Now, this is a more complex design. I don't know, have we all traveled to like London before? Have we all taken the train, sub?
I was
Anyone?
going to tell you that you got this thing from London. This
I know. I know. Example, because London has, well, so far I've not been to other cities, maybe all those like Asian countries, I know they have like very complicated, road network, or in terms of their train network. But I know in London or United Kingdom, they have a very complex, very intertwined. Their train lines are very intertwined.
Yes.
Yes. So that's why, this example is there. If you have ever been to like their train station, right? If you stand there and you spend maybe 3 days, somehow you would understand what it means. Even right here in Canada, if some of us are in Canada here, right? You would understand what this route mean. Why? Because they use a clear legend. So legends are like, color codes, or if they are using icon to signify what they actually, mean on the design that you have. So if you can see on the left hand, on my right hand side, you can see routes 8 to, and so on and so forth with the different color code. So you can follow the color code and then you find your route. So it's quite a complex design, but this is a good example of, this is a lot of information, but I want you to focus on just what you need. So if you take this map, I'm not telling you to look at everything, right? Just follow the map. If you're looking for red, just follow the red line, and then you can find your way around. So this is an example of, you can have a complicated design, but you must use clear, legend. You must be very visible in whatever you do. So the word user experience was first coined in the year 1990s, right? By Don Norman. So that was the person that actually coined that word. Now, as I explained earlier on, the principle of UI UX has been for years, right? People have been designing apps, not apps, they've been designing different gadgets, different tools that even to them, they might not call it that word. They don't actually even know, okay, in the nearest future, this is what, UI UX is going to be, but it's not just today, it's just gaining more ground nowadays. In everything you do, you think of the user. So right now, this is a career, whereas you are thinking of people rather than yourself. It's not about you. So it's a good example with what the example of the signage that said no trash. That's a good example, right? It's not about you, it's about the user. You have to think about them. Right? What do they want? How easy is it going to be for them to understand what I've done? So moving into like questions that you need to answer yourself, or that you are concerned about, right? Does the site or application give the user value? If I'm creating an app, I'm creating a website, how is it beneficial to you as a user, right? If you sit down and say, okay, you know what? I want to develop a app that can help you find late night food. So if like restaurants that are open 24/7, that they will be there no matter what, you can always call them, right? First of all, that is value. You have your target audience. Now, second question, does the user find the site or application simple to use and navigate? Is it very simple, as I said, as simple as ABC? The attention span of people are very short now. It has moved from, people not liking to see just static image alone to, people wanting to see animation. Right now, it's not even about animation again. Is it useful to me? Right? Everyone is going back to, what it used to be. So whatever application you're building has to be simple. You must be able to find your way around it. Now, does the user actually enjoy using your site or the application? Do they come back? The example of, bank apps putting so many functions into the application. User interface is the point of human-computer interaction and communication in device. That's like general standard, definition. Here to the problem question a lot of people ask me, right? UI and UX. Is it the same thing? They are quite different. And if you notice, I've been introducing them to you, interjectly, right? Together, right? I've been saying UI, UX, together now, but they're a little bit different. And we're going to get, into that very soon. Can someone tell me the difference between UI, UX? So far with what we've explained. Anyone?
So user interface is the place where you actually get the experience from. So for example, you have a device, a mobile device, then how you interact is the user interface. Where you interact is user interface. then the experience you get from that interaction is the user experience. So that's the difference. So the difference is the experience and how you're interacting.
Okay, just hold that thought. We would get more into that, but thank you very much for answering. I mean, that's pretty much it in, layman term. Okay, so both terms, UI, UX, they fall under the concept of human-computer interaction, and that's HCI, right? Just hold on, I'm going to, expatiate more about HCI. Now, HCI is a field of study focusing on the creation of computer technology and interaction between humans and all forms of IT design. Okay, so people are actually studying all this. Before AI became like, the thing in town, people started studying this. I remember like back in school when people used to use this thing as, what's it called? As projects. Then people will be studying, AI, augmented reality, all those things. It didn't gain any grant then, but right now, AI is gaining grant. People have actually studied this. And then we have like even schools, department dedicated to studying all this. Now, specifically, right, HCI studies, it's an area such as like user-centered design, UCD. That's what UCD is called, user-centered design, right? And these are like specific studies. So if you go to school right now, we have courses that people can learn, right? You can learn, user-centered design, like a whole full course. You go to school, learn for 4 years, learn all that. And because of all this now, UI UX is gaining a lot of ground. Everyone is saying, okay, I want to build a career in this. I can tell you for sure that as a UI UX designer, if you start working as a UI UX designer, you build your career to a level, you'll be earning, like in dollars, you can earn up to, say, in a year, right? You can be earning like 550K in a year. And this is why a lot of people, if you search on like go to job, sites now, you will see over 150 jobs, available on just for this career alone. You need to know a little bit of, coding. A lot of people are like, oh no, I can't code, I can't do this, I can't do that. It's just language. The way you learned English, the way you learned French, where you learned Yoruba, it's the same thing with what you do. Now, as a designer, you're not learning this code to develop, applications. You are learning it so that it would influence the design that you do. Now, such example of code that you need to learn, there are just 2 of them that I would say are mandatory for you to know: HTML and CSS. If you're already in the IT world, I'm sure you know this already, right? And these are like basic things. Even kids nowadays in school, they learn HTML and CSS. So you have to just understand what it means, and that will help you, that would influence your design skills. In the aspect of the UX, now the responsibility includes designing, developing and analyzing system. So I would say the pre-design, that is where the experience actually comes into place. Now, after the whole brainstorming, you've spoken to your team, content writer, you're developing your user persona and all that. Don't worry, we'll get more into all these terms that I'm talking into, in a bit. Just explaining, because user experience is more of the pre than after. So as Efosa rightly said, more of the experience that you get in even using the product, right? That is where user experience is. So if you're focusing on UX, right? There are jobs that you can take, and we'll get to that shortly. And now in the aspect of UI, you are more concerned about how it looks. It's as simple as that. What color you're using, in some cases, you are not even concerned about arrangement, right? But it's a good skill for you to have, to be able to even, make it your own concern, right? That, okay, you know what? I need to know properly in terms of hierarchy where it should be. Now, the example that we gave of the garbage, no trash, that garbage, obviously the designer doesn't have skills. And the skills specifically in terms of knowing, hierarchy and saying, okay, you know what? This information should be up, this one should be down, right? So that if somebody is reading it, because as human, we read, top, bottom, left, right. So all about those influence your design skills. Okay. So speaking about skills, right? As a UX designer, now, if you notice, we are now breaking it and differentiating it now. You can be a UX designer. Now, excuse me, you can be a UX designer or you can be a UI designer. Now, if you're a UX designer, you are more concerned about the front-end development basics, right? Now, the front-end development basics, you need to understand HTML, you need to understand CSS, basic JavaScript, just some of all those things, right? Just so that you are able to understand how this design is going to interface. For example, if you go and design this, if you tell your designer to, bring the sky from heaven, and put it inside a mobile device and everything. And then, of course, yes, the designer has the skill to do that. He has done that, and you now take it to your developers. How would they be able to interpret what you've given them into, and make it a reality, into a prototype? They can't do that. So you need to understand that, okay, this is achievable, this is not achievable. And that's the first skills that you need to know. You need to have prototyping skills, right? As a UX designer, you should be familiar with prototyping skills like, like Azura HP, Adobe AX, Sketch, among others. You should be able to have those sort of skills, because you'll be using it for, your prototype. You need to show, if you're collaborating with a large team, you need to be able to, have a prototype for everybody to say this and that. Now, collaboration, it is a very, very crucial skill to have. For example, for a UX designer, you should be able to collaborate with a lot of people, right? And this falls not just UI UX, other careers too, right? Problem-solving skills, you should have that. User-centric mindset, you should have that. So I feel, if in my own opinion, and also working as a project manager, a little bit of my career, right? This also falls under skills that a project manager should also have, because you are sitting on so many projects at the same time, and you have so many people that you are giving directions to. The same thing, it's also similar to what a UX designer should be to have as a skill. Now, as a UI designer, of course, visual designing, that is on you. You should also have knowledge of prototyping tools. As I say, you'll be able to do it. Now, stakeholder management. So going back to the example of the no trash example, right? Now, the designer could have said, you know what, let me just design this alone as icon, and then, make it iconic, rather make it a minimalistic design. But he's working with other people, other stakeholders. Probably that's what they told him. This is what we want, and that's all. And that's what he did, right? Of course, you must also have skills like creativity, adaptability too. UX, UI designers, we come from a lot of backgrounds. So if you're coming from a background that is not, say, design focused, it's okay. So many people out there, these are people that actually are into that are engineers before. These are people that are like cashiers. These are people that, business owners, but they transitioned into being UX, UI designer. And why? Because it is that simple. It's not rocket science. You can actually learn this thing.
Yeah, I have a question.
Yes, please.
What with the UX designer, when you said collaboration on the previous slide, are they collaborating with fellow UX designers or other parts of the team?
Collaboration for you, I'll start with UI designers. That's where stakeholder management comes in. That is also collaboration in another word, right? The stakeholders, like all the people that are involved in this project. So if you start a project, you want to build a hub, there are so many people that are involved. You have your UX writer. Now, UX writer, allow me to, just, spend some time explaining some of all these terms. These are people that write the copy. So as a designer, it's not necessarily your duty to say, you know what, for this website, these are the copies that I want to put there. I want to write this blog. This is what it's going to look like. My buttons, instead of read more, I want to put, view more. I want to say learn more. It's not necessarily your duty, except you are working in a startup company where they don't have the budgets to hire multiple personnels for all these kind of roles. That is when you notice that one person is doing the job of all these things. But as a UI UX designer, you need to learn all these things. So stakeholder management, you're working with a team. So this person, whatever this person says, whatever this person says, so it's still collaboration. Now, as a UX designer, you are collaborating with the team that you're working with. Now, some projects, you have multiple UX designer. You can have 2 or 3 UX designer, right? You can have multiple UI designers. Now, how would happen? So a company like Google, that you see UX writer, you're going to see, lead designer, you're going to see researcher, UX researcher. Those are the people that you are collaborating with. So in bigger companies, there's hierarchy of collaboration, just like in every company, right? A UI designer, if you're working in a bigger company, whereas they have like multiple, you have UX researcher and all this, the UX researcher would be in the best position to interface with like product owners. Is the one first interfacing with them. Then later on, move to say, okay, you know what, I want to actually meet with the designer himself or herself to know what is going on. A lot of UX designers have good sense of visuals, right? Which means you can recognize things, you can see, right? And generally, UX designers transition into being like lead designers, they're the ones that, okay, oversee the whole thing and say, okay, this looks like it's not good. They can actually just tell you right up, okay? Now, moving to applicability of this field of user experience. Now, these are different jobs, as some people rightly put in the chat already, right? UI UX designers, that's a job on its own, right? You can actually have a role as a UI UX designer. You can have as a consultant. You can have as a researcher. Those are jobs. If you go online, you can definitely see a lot of jobs that are related to UI UX. So if you want to build a career in this job, it doesn't mean you have to be the one in front of the software designing it, but you must have a knowledge of all this, right? And that is what we're going to actually go through today. You must have over 6-7 years of experience, right, before you're a lead designer. Now, you can also be a solution architect. Of course, project managers actually need these skills. You don't, as I said earlier, you don't necessarily have to be the one, designing this thing, but you need to know how to do this so that if you're managing a project that involves developing this and your designer is doing this, you can better give, constructive feedback, right? And also possible solutions for him or her to be able to, design what works for all of you. The same thing goes to all these other roles. So before we move this, having said all this, what are the design processes, right? Say you want to design something now. You want to design a app. What are the things that you have to do, say from step 1 to step 5? The first thing, as I said earlier on, as we might have been, just saying generally, your research. Before you do anything, you have to research, right? You're performing your user research, and this is where user UX researchers come into place, right? You research, you create your user persona, that's where your target audience come into place. You identify the information, and so many things that you need. The architecture of the application, saying, okay, you know what? The behind the scenes, before even wireframing and all that, what is the architect? What are we using to develop all of this? Now you're designing the user flow and wireframe. So for me, in the course over my experience with all this, my experience, right? This is where the magic actually happens. If you're able to have your user flow, all said and done, and your wireframes, you are, say, 70% done with your whole design. Because that is where the design actually happens. Once you have your wireframe done, you already know where you want to place things. All you are doing is now deciding what color works, what shape works for this and all. Then you create your prototype. This is where you design and, of course, perform user testing. Is that clear? Any question on that?
I have a question.
Okay.
So I have a question. Yes.
Go ahead, please.
So at the level of performing the user research and creating performing the user personas and creating user personas. Yeah, when it's done, is there any sort of like user acceptance testing or any sort of testing before you go to the next steps of building the user flow wireframe? As in your experience, do you think it's profitable to do that? So like you've done your research, you created your user personas. How do you test that actually your research was successful? And from that personal level, how do you verify with like a sample of what might be the the target niche that might be using that app or something at that stage? Is this something that is being done?
Yes. So thank you very much. I mean, when you were asking the question, one thing I wanted to say was I like to tell people is, first of all, design process or anything that has to do with process, of course, there are set rules that you must follow, right? But it now boils down to you as a person, whatever makes it easier for you to, achieve your results optimally, right? So if you want to conduct, say, user test after you've done your, your architecture of the application, you've done your user persona, you want to go ahead and still do tests, right? You can do it. But usually it is not always done because, first of all, in a project, you are working with a budget. Now they're telling you, throughout this whole project, this is what we want to do. This is the amount of manpower. And mind you, some people that work in the IT field, we're working per hour. So if rather than doing all your research and all of that in the initial stage, you want to do it over again, if you have the budget, go ahead and do it. So after you've done or while doing your user research, and the reason why you do your user research is to know if people actually want to use that product in the first place. Now, the way you carry user research, there are different ways, right? We are not going, so like each of these steps, right, and this process, we can actually spend like hours talking about the things that you need to do. You can conduct interviews, you can conduct like surveys, you can send it to multiple people, and get their buy-in. You can, so usually what you would do if you have a company and you want to develop a app, the initial stage, you can like get a room, like, invite people, ask them physical questions. Now, you can ask them all this, and that's where your user research comes in. Or you just go to Google, go to paid resources and find out if these things are actually good. Now, there are resources online that give you like research and tells you, okay, you know what, in this area, right? Even Google does it, right? In this area, this is the amount of people that are using, that are searching for this word. And so that way, that helps you and say, okay, these are my local, these are like my target audience. Okay, so I believe in that initial stage, you already have all your information about the user. You already know if they want to use your product or not. So when you come up with your user persona, right, it's not 100%.
I just wanted to add, just as some supplementary addition to what you're saying. So it all depends on the framework you're using. It depends on the team you're working with. If you're working on a very big application, which is something I've done in the last 1 or 2 years. So if you're working on a very big application where, for instance, we're spending a whole year on just design, we've not even started building. In 1 whole year, all we're just doing is designing, right? In our review meetings, right, we're not really doing a user acceptance testing. We're not getting into the UATs yet, but we're coming with the designs to say, okay, this is what we've done so far. How does this look to the stakeholders? Are you guys in tune with this? Are you moving? Is this moving in the right direction that you want? That's something that can be applicable to the question that, I think it was, Kenne that was asking that question, right? So it depends on the framework you're using, depends on what you're building, it depends on the stage you are in your application. User acceptance testing, because the application is not yet built yet, the user won't be able to even get into UAT yet, right? Because at this point, we're just doing design. The application is not built yet. So I just wanted to add some color to the question, that the answer that Tosin gave. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Thank you. So I'm just trying to scroll back to what we discussed about part of the skills that you must even have as a UX UI designer, which is stakeholder management, right? So at each stage of your design process, you need to be able to, go back to your stakeholders and say, okay, are we in tune with whatever we want to talk about? Are we, on track? Are we meeting our objectives, and things like that? So after developing the app, there's another set of user testing in there where you have you can call people into like a room and you give them their app to use even before you launch, right? You test it, get their feedback, you go back into designing. If you see that, okay, they have valid reasons, you just test generally. And that's why even some apps out there, right, what's it called? They send you like beta versions of their app for you to use and, give feedback and say, oh, no, this is not this. If we all have Netflix and we're using Netflix, optimally, you'll see that they just added like their game version, right? So they might have added it like a few months back, but it's now something that they're now pushing more to everyone. So if you try and play any game, you would see that they noted that this is beta version, right? You play the game, you give them, what's it called? You give them feedback and tell them that, oh no, this is not working. What they're actually doing, there's user testing, Some people might say A/B testing, right? So that's what they do. In some cases, you offer incentive to, clients for you to get more people to use it and so on. Thank you. So today we're going to talk about general softwares, right? That UI UX designers use. We're going to be talking about Figma. We're going to be talking about Adobe XD, and I'll tell you why we're going to be talking about them in a few seconds. Okay, so first of all, we're going to be talking and discussing about Figma. Now, Figma is an open source application that it is readily available for everybody, right? All you need to do is create an account on their website, and then voila, you have it. And then you can start creating your wireframes, and start designing your apps and so on and so forth, right? It's a very powerful tool, right? That everybody must use. So as a beginner, yes, you can definitely start with Figma. It's a very powerful tool. You can use that, you can collaborate, you can create your prototype. It's more like an all-in-one, tool for everybody. But if you're advancing in your career, right, and standardization and all, you might want to move into a more paid version of like apps like Adobe XD, right? Those are like apps that you can use that helps you to be able to do a lot of things. And one, according to on what's it called, unclear sources, right? Figma is being outphased. Now they might still be using the app, but out there now, if you hear, if any designer tell you, okay, Adobe XD is like more for like the professionals. Everyone wants to use this. Everyone is migrating into using Adobe XD. People have been using it, but it didn't gain more ground for me then, right? But right now, as I said, advancing in your career, you have to use XD. Okay, so I'm going to switch to show you the interface of Figma, right? And things that you can do in it, on things that I've actually done, and show you some of my work, right? And these are the things that we'll be building in the next couple of sessions. The next session, we'll be building your portfolio. You build something, and together we're all building that together in the class. To be able to access Figma, all you need is your browser, right? Preferably if you're using Chrome. I've tested it with other browsers. It works fine, right? But I prefer to use Chrome just because of the consistency in the way things are being arranged, size and all that. There's a limit to what we can learn in 2 hours, right? So the aim for today is just to introduce us into the world of Figma, and we get to understand the environment. From next week, we're going full practical, where we start a project from scratch. As I say, we're going to be building a website. So all these designs that you can see, those are banners, right? To be able to be versatile, right? As much as possible, you want to give your employers the opportunity, or so that they won't have the option to say they want to replace you. Now, whenever it comes to different jobs, you must have multiple skills, right? Design generally can be part of it. From designing the icon, the logo of the brand, all those things, you should be able to have an idea about it. Even if you don't have full knowledge about it, you should be able to have. So these are the interface of like different screens that was designed for an app, right? And as I said, there are so many stages before developing. The user flow was developed in this. We have our user journey, the blueprint, right? Where you want people to go to, what is happening generally in the back end, and things like that, excuse me. So everything was designed here, and then we said, okay, let's go in and start designing. Before you even sign in, you already know what happens. So you're not just going into design blindly. You have all this laid out first of all for you. Now, if you log into Figma, for some of us that haven't used Figma at all, it's pretty simple, right? You log into it, you have your plain Canva. On your left-hand side, you can have, that's where you have all your tools, right? You can see the icon here. You can just go through all of this. So guys, I'm going to be skipping through all these elementary things because, I mean, next week is when we go into it fully, right? So this is just me introducing you to the environment. The major tools that you're going to be using are all, on the top bar, the toolbar here, right? On your right-hand side, you're going to be seeing the properties. So if you choose any tool here, you're going to be seeing the properties, on your right-hand side here. You can see everything. In the middle is where you do your design generally, right? And of course, if you are doing your design, you see like a menu here, right? You can see, if you can follow my cursor, you can see prototype. That's when you're done with your design. You want to link like one screen to another, you can do your prototyping, do a lot of things, even animation, the way you want it to look. So you give your developers, you save them, time, just give them the ideas of things that you want to do. But XD is generally, a family of Adobe, software under the Adobe, right? And it's a more professional tool to use as a UI UX designer, right? Why? So I'll give you reasons for it. And aside it even being, part of trendy, apps to use, right? The collaboration you can have is beyond what, you can find in other softwares out there, right? It has so many opportunities for compatibility. Now, compatibility issue on how you want to, export, how you want to develop it. People can give you real-time feedback. Other softwares do that out there, but, Adobe generally, right? They have a way of integrating all of their softwares together. From this software, if you were using Figma, right, you would have to probably design something else in Photoshop or in another application and then import it into it, right? But from Adobe XD, you can design from other software directly without even having to, close this and then close that. You can direct things from, you can just design things from above. So it almost has the same interface with pretty much any UI UX design tool out there. And generally you have your toolbar on like your left-hand side, you have your properties on the left-hand side. On the right-hand side you have your Canva in the middle where you can actually do your own design. And one thing that is common among all these softwares is planning. You have to plan before you start designing. What I mean by planning is the colors that you want to use, you have to know. The font you want to use, you have to know. So what I do when I want to design anything, there's something called style guide, right? Style guide is just, that's just my own one, right? But it's common. That's what most designers do out there. Before I design anything, I do my style guide. And that is what I share with my, stakeholders, first of all, and say, you know what, I've decided to use this font for my app. I've decided to use this color palette for my app, and this is what it's going to look like. Is it in line with what you envision, right? Of course, along the line, down the road, we can obviously edit things. We can, tweak things around. But that is where I do my first interaction and say, you know what, okay, this is it. Spend about 3 hours trying to decide, this is the best color. This is the shape I want to use throughout. I don't want, flat buttons. I want, more like 3D. I want rounded buttons. So what buttons mean? That those are the things that you click on your device, right? So as I explained earlier on, it has almost the same interface, with Figma. If you are very familiar with Figma, then XD, it's like easy for you to do. You have all your, everything you want to do here, your planning. So this is where your planning comes in. You add all this, and there are things called like universal assets that you can do that you don't have to, replicate over time. So before going into that, let me just, move on to the next. So what we want to focus more now is how to use AI to even start your journey. So what we're going to do, we want to build a website, right? Or a app. Can I have a suggestion from anybody on what we should build? I know what we want to do, but it'll be interesting to know what people might be thinking and what you guys want to be able to do. Of course, nothing out of the ordinary, something that you think we should be able to build in in 2 sessions more. Any suggestions from anyone?
An e-commerce platform.
Okay. E-commerce platform. Ordering website. Okay, almost.
Okay, sites where you can order for food.
African store websites. Okay. School bus pickup website. What if we had a website that would provide you information on the different types of AI applications to use? So for example, you can say if you want, say you're looking for information, right? AI applications that can build a good PowerPoint for me, right? We already have that. We already have different softwares, but you need a website where you can just see everything listed out for you. Top 5, 1, 2, 3, this and that, all that. So that's an example. So we have 3 options. First of all, e-commerce websites, right, which we can use for African web store websites. We have the food ordering where you can order your food from, right? And then we have the more like an informative site. Which do we go for, guys? Okay, food ordering. Okay. We're going to be developing a food ordering website. What are we going to call the name of our food ordering website? Where we started our practical, and this is also, carrying out our research.
Fusion, we should call it Fusion.
I'm using everyone, like here, making it a discussion, right? I'm saying, guys, okay, which one would you prefer? And you guys told me. So you guys are like my, say, users right now. Okay, what do people want? What do people like to see? A lot of people, voted and said, okay, you know what, food ordering. Imagine if I, at the end of the vote, and I said, guys, you know what, we're going to be building AI. What am I doing? I'm not using data to influence my decision. I'm using my own. And remember, it's not about you, it's about who? It's about the users, right? And that's what we're doing. I've sampled and I've said, okay, this is what everyone wants, and that's what we're doing. So we have 2 options for name, Wazobia, and we have Fusion. Jackpot Food. Okay, another thing to do is your name should be catchy, right? At the same time, also mean something. So Jackpot Food is maybe if you want to jackpot from wherever you are, this is the food that you should order and take with you. Is that what it means? Okay. So yes, so we are good with Jackpot Food. Okay, we already have our name. Now the next thing to come up with our brand identity, right? And when I say, let me, bring it down. Coming up with our logo, right? Coming up with the colors that you want to use. Because before you go into design, you must have all of these things done, right? So permit me, we're going to be jumping some steps in actual UI design stuff because this is just the class for us to be more practical. We're moving into practical right now, right? So we're moving away from saying, okay, user persona and all these things. Now, if we wanted to do user persona, we would have said, okay, who is our target audience for this website? Right? Our target audience for food.
I think we should do the full scale. Let's know who is our target so that
okay,
we'll be able to come up with a brand color.
Okay. So Adiola, can you give us who do you think target audience should be for your Jackpot Food?
The target audience to be more for migrants all over.
Okay. I can see new immigrants, young adults. Okay. Students. Okay. So let's put in mind in coming up with all these things, what is the reason for it? So we are assuming, this is just us assuming. So there's something called assumption, making assumptions. But again, I would advise against that. It's not good to, when you are working on a proper project, guys, it's not good to assume. Do your research, do your due diligence in researching and making sure that this is what the people want to do. But for the purpose of demonstration, we are assuming, and that is what we're coming up, basing our conclusion on. So for students, I'm saying young adults, okay, for students, we are saying, okay, these are people that will most likely be out. They are young, we can still put them, may only be known to Nigerians, okay, the time Jackpot. Okay, so that is where your target audience also come in, right? So we've come up with a very fantastic name, and we are saying, okay, yes, I'm going to go and meet my stakeholders. Now, Miss Olusheye is one of our stakeholders. He has come back to us now and said, Jackpot may only be known to Nigerians. No one understands it. So as much as possible, you want your name to be known by everyone. easily understood by most people, except your target audience is only, from your, say, your tribe. That way you can run with that name. Even if other people come to patronize you, your primary targets are Nigerians, right? So for sake of this demonstration, our primary target, first of all, or the geographic where we are targeting, Nigerians that are new immigrants, people that are coming, where can they find our proper food, right? So this is us breaking things down and say, okay, for example, creating a user persona. We're going to use, say, getting food you love in a new. So, okay, Adiola is this is just random assumption, everyone. Is in his, say, late 30s, right? He just migrated rather from Nigeria, right? He doesn't really know any place in the country. And is constantly looking for, where to get food that makes him remember home, right? So this is us creating persona, right? You are assuming based on the research that you've done, based on the data that you've collected from people, and using that to come up with your user persona and say, okay, yes, this is the guy. He's constantly looking for where to get food and blah blah blah. So that is that's what he's doing, right? So again, you can go as far as giving more details about him. This is his location, this is where he's from, and so on and so forth, right? We already have our user persona. Who are we targeting? We're targeting Adiola. Is in his late 30s, right? He just came from Nigeria. He's looking for where to get that hot amala, where to eat that inyo amala, begiri, ewedu, all those things. So now having distill that information, and then you already have that your user persona, it already gives you an idea on the type of products that you should be selling, right? So in our food ordering, we can sell so many other things, but in the forefront of our users, what information do you want to show to them first? You want to show them amala. You want to show them their local dish first of all. So you don't want to build a website, whereas where your user goes into, they are seeing Chinese first. They can easily see there's McDonald's, they are all these things. You don't want to show burger. Maybe on your first header banner, what you want to show, just confirm that the screen is still, yes, the screen is still on exploring the use of AI. We're going to get into that. So this is just an interactive session that we're talking about, trying to distill, get our information before moving into what we're going to use AI to do. Good, thank you for confirming that. So yes, so those are the things that already inform your decision making. Says, okay, I'm building a website. Now, at the back of your mind, you are jotting down and saying, I need images of local dish. Put that somewhere. That is your first concern, right? Now, moving into brand identity, we've said our name is Japa Food. We buy a domain, japafood.com. Okay, we're good to go. Now, coming up with, say, colors, coming up with, brand identity, right? To do all that, if you are properly into the design world, okay, there's psychology, there are things that actually mean. So for your primary target audience, right, who is in his late 30s, there are colors that will speak to him. You won't go and, this is just me, also assuming, right? You won't go and use pink as your primary color. Don't know if I'm making sense, right? You won't go and use pink as your primary
making
color.
sense.
Exactly. So all this information is informing what we are doing. So we're not just saying, okay, idealize our target audience. Let's give him pink and let's make our logo pink and purple. So this way, even if you're a project manager, right? And then the designer he does his thing, is in his world. Designers could be, permit me to use the word crazy sometimes. They could go above and beyond, right? And it comes back to you as a project manager, product owner, and says, I want to make our logo, I want it to have pink and purple. You're like, how? My target audience is an adult, right? It's not really the young type. Maybe if it's like proper Gen Z or some like children, right? That color could attract them. So the psychology of things actually come into play, right? So this would affect our color. We already have in our mind and say, okay, you know what? We want to look a little bit mature, but still appeal to the youth of nowadays. Now, as I said, remember I said, the kind of pictures that you want to already start having, right? Doesn't mean you're not going to have burger, Chinese food on your website or anything, but that information, remember the hierarchy of information that you're giving out to people. Good. So having said all of that, let's move into, trying to get into our work done as a UI UX designer now. Can we go?
Yes.
Good.
Yeah.
Which takes us to our first use of AI tool. Chroma is one of the, so far so good, one of the best tools I use personally, right? For building for my brand identity stage. When I'm coming up with my style guide, please let's note this, because we're going to be, reminding ourselves from next class, we're going to say, I'm going to ask us, guys, for your style guide, remember what it is. What is your style guide? What is this? What's that? So as a product owner, as a product manager, you're already, if you have a project, you're telling your designer, you're asking him, okay, before you start proper projects, where's the style guide? Let's decide properly before you even start wasting, our time and budget and all those things. So Chroma is a cut-edging tool, that designers use out there. Now, it's a color selection tool. It helps you to be able to choose the right color for what you're doing. So as I'm saying now, based on, as I said, do not use assumption. I'm saying Adiola in his late 30s is an adult, right? Young adult. I can say maybe, it's not a young adult. If you're in your late 30s, you're already like adult, right? Our secondary target audience can be maybe 20s, late 20s, right? And we're saying, okay, Adiola might like color like brown, dark colors that show maturity, green. Our secondary target audience might like, bright colors. So that is me, I've assumed. Again, you can use tools to make you come up with, accurate decision. And that is where Chroma comes in. So we're going to use Chroma, right? So what Chroma does generally, it gives you teach the AI the type of colors that you assume that, okay, this person might like this kind of color. You choose those colors, right? And based on that, it would inform you based on research that this color and this color matches. This color and this color does not match. This color and this color does not match. And that way you're able to build your color system and saying, okay, if I build this color, and then there's something called color psychology, right? If you see red, everyone knows red is danger, right? You see green. Green is more lively, right? Means go. Okay, it means go. It means that's why we have it on traffic lights and so on and so forth, right? So I
Yes.
on time. Okay, we're almost, so we move fast now. We're almost done. So that's why you see it on traffic light and so on and so forth, right? So the psychology of colors. So this AI tool is to help you, at least not 100%, but help you to get something solid that you can share with your stakeholders. That, okay, you know what, I've come up with this. Do you like it? Should we go ahead with it or not? So all you need to do is just visit chroma.com. So after this class, in your spare time, you can also go through this. You can just play around it. I'm going to demonstrate it now how it works. It's very, very easy to use. You don't need any special skill or anything. Even as somebody that you don't have a background in UI UX design and you need it for work, you can have it. What I'm just doing is just searching on Google. I mean, that's how easy it is for you to go. Just chroma.co. Right, just search and then you find it. And then we go in, step-by-step procedure. You see this, all you need to do is just go to generate. It's as simple as that. And what you do is you teach the AI, because it's generative AI, you teach it on what you want. And what it tells you is choose 50 colors that you think. So based on our assumption, we're thinking, okay, Adiola is going to like deep colors that make it look matured, right? So I'm selecting this. All you need to do is just scroll down all through, select those deep colors that you think, okay, you might like. Obviously not pink, just select all of this. And I'm just going to select random colors just for demonstration purposes. But if you are going to be doing this for a project, you would already have like a certain tone of, colors that you're using. So mind you, if you are selecting this, just look at the top bar, you're going to be seeing, your progress. We have, if it's too tiny, I can zoom in, but let me know if it's too tiny. So as you can see, it's very easy, even as a product owner or anybody, and you're just, before you go and talk to your stakeholders, you select colors and then just give them something. So I'll show you the magic that this does in like 1 minute. And it also guides you. If you're picking some colors, if you can see on the bottom, right here, it tells you are picking some certain shade of colors. You need to select, other colors so that you have better color, palette. So guys, as I said, this is a three way thing, right? This is just the first session, and this is more of introducing us into this, right? Next week, we can continue, and we're already building our project. We started building our project. So you can see today what we did was our research phase. We've researched on what we want to do, and then we are now starting to build our project. And what we are using is AI generally. Gone are those days where you use by yourself and say, okay, I want to use this color, I want to do that one. So what I've done is I've taught this, generative AI on the type of color that I've assumed that my target audience will want. And I leave it to it for it to generate, what I can do. So let's wait for the result, and then we call it, a session for today. And then we meet next week, same time, to start our full Jackpot food. Whoever owns that name should go and trademark it, else we're going to go and buy the domain, and then you have to pay. So if you definitely want to know more, we are going to be having design bootcamp coming up soon. You can visit this our website where you can find more information about it. I'm going to leave it to Ayo to explain more about it.
So thanks everyone, and I know Tosin would round up in a few minutes because of our time. I know some people are in the Eastern time zone, so it's not so convenient for us getting too late into the night to hear. But I think we've all learned something at least going forward, and we'll build our project for the next 2 weeks. And then for those who are interested in getting into more about UI UX design, getting into more wireframing, learning design basics so that you can use it very well in your job, or you're trying to build a career there, then please feel free to leave your name. So there's a link that is in the chat. Please just look, it's just a Google page. It's just your name and your email. I'm just going to paste it again, and then we can leave our stuffs details on that Google form. I see some people are already dropping their emails here. That's fine. We'll pick it from there as well. If you've left it on the Google form as well, that's great. We'll send you the link to the videos that we've done today. So this is a 3-week session, like Tosin said, and we're going to build every week. So every week we'll work on the website. Now we said we are doing a food app, right? So that's what we're going to work on. Next week Saturday. Where we stop this week is where we'll continue next week Saturday. And I know Tosin still has a lot to share with us from his wealth of experience as we get along. I'll hand it back to Tosin so that he can show us, what the outcome is, and then we'll round up for today. Thanks Tosin, and thanks everyone for attending. And these are the details. We've put in our social media pages over there. Please feel free to follow us on those social media pages. We're running a promotion right now that would, it's a limited time promotion. We'll talk more about it next week. Because of our time, I'll hand it back to Tosin. Thanks.
So thank you guys very much. I really appreciate, the time spent and, knowledge shared by everyone, making this interactive. Thank you very much. See you next week.